day, good evening, or good night. Today, I welcome you to the first part of the third installment of Art Thrills. Blazing's the name, and today's story comes from user Pietvan Sandvik from r/no sleep titled I worked the night shift at a hospital. There was a list of strange rules. Let's get to it, shall we? Having to spend your nights awake and your days asleep is not made for everyone. This hasn't been a problem for me as a kid since I never managed to fall asleep at night and ended up sleeping during class. I lost count of how many times I woke up to my teacher shouting my name and my classmates staring at me. When I turned 16, I had to start thinking about what career I wanted to pursue because I usually am wide awake at night. I figured I could become a security guard who works the night shift. I look intimidating as I am tall and often go to the gym, so my sole appearance will tell people not to try to mess with me. Although, in fact, I am not as tough and strong as I look. That being said, it appears my experience in the field has led me to quite a unique job opportunity. My boss approached me and asked if I was interested in guarding a hospital for 3 days. He mentioned the job would pay exponentially well compared to my previous job, as it requires experience and a trustworthy person. The opportunity of working in a hospital has not yet been offered to me during my time working here, and it seemed like quite a challenge. If I managed to fulfill the job as expected, it might also result in a salary increase. I accepted the offer wholeheartedly, as declining would be foolish. I remember my boss looking relieved upon hearing my response. Supposedly, he struggled to find any other security guards willing to take on the job. It will start next week on Thursday. Make sure to be there before 10 p.m., he said, shaking my hand. I shook his hand with a huge smile on my face, ecstatic to get started. You bet, sir. In the days leading up to the assignment, I guarded a few uneventful shifts at various places, such as the university and the McDonald's. I was happy, muck happy even. However, when the day of the unique opportunity arrived, not wanting to be late, I drove to the hospital around 8 p.m. It's only a 30-minute ride, but you never know what might happen. I also figured getting to know the place wasn't such a bad idea. I mean, how am I supposed to guard a building I don't know the layout of? I didn't want to screw this up, and it pays me 3 times what I usually make. It was surprisingly busy on the road, which led me to arrive at the hospital around 8:40 p.m. I got out of my car and made my way to the front door. The building seemed medieval, as it was made from bricks and had this Roman-esque charm. The building wasn't big, in fact, it was rather small. From the outside, it seemed the building has 3 floors, with short hallways. I pushed the front door open and greeted the lady at the counter. The smile radiated a welcoming, soothing feeling, easing me of any nerves in an instant. Hello, I believe I was hired for the night shift at this hospital? I'm a bit early though. I was supposed to start at 10 p.m.
What's your name, darling?
She asked, maintaining her inviting smile. I'm Jake, I replied confidently. She started typing on the PC in front of her, seemingly checking whether I was speaking the truth. I mean, you never can be too sure. Some crazy people would pretend to be a night shift security guard.
Is your boss Michael?
Yes, ma'am.
Alright, one of the security guards will be here shortly to explain the procedures. Would you like a cup of coffee in the meantime?
I would love a cup of coffee. Could it be black? I asked, with a graceful face. She chuckled and left to get me my coffee. A few minutes later, she returned with my cup of coffee. It tasted amazing, unlike anything I've tasted before. Everything seemed to fall right in line because the security guard approached me right as I finished my coffee. The security guard looked at me with skeptical eyes, judging my appearance before saying, "You must be the security guard, huh? I didn't expect someone so young to show up for the job, but that doesn't matter if you do as I say." I got out of my chair and held out my hand to shake his hand. Nice to meet you, sir. I assume you'll be showing me around? I asked, confidently. I was always taught that it's important to look confident, even though you might not feel confident, as it leaves a positive impression on the people you work for. However, the security guard in front of me 6'7", and quite the physique made it difficult for me not to feel intimidated. "Follow me," he ordered. I followed him and we made our way to the security room. He proceeded to show me how the cameras operate and gave me a tour around the building. He told me some basic security rules which I've heard too many times. "Oh, and there's one last thing," he mentioned as he was leaving. "You see that paper on the desk? Read it. It contains a list of rules that you must follow. If you don't, no. I hope you are professional enough to take them seriously and follow them, no matter how bizarre they might seem." I looked at him dumbfounded, but swiftly regained my composure and assured him I would follow the rules. "Good luck, kid," he said as he left the room. I watched him leave as the clock positioned above the door and told me that it was 9:30 p.m., which meant I had 30 more minutes before my shift officially started. The paper stated a total of 7 rules.
Rule number 1. Your shift will begin at 10 p.m. Make sure that you are inside the security room by that time. From 10:15 p.m. until 11 p.m., you are required to patrol the building to ensure there are no individuals are present. If you encounter anyone, kindly ask them to leave. Rule number 2. Somewhere between 11 p.m. and 3 a.m., a young woman could appear, knocking on the front door asking to see her husband. Ignore her completely and pretend she isn't there until she goes away. Rule number 3. Ensure that the lights inside the intensive care unit remain on throughout your shift. If they happen to turn off, make your way over there and turn them back on. If you hear screaming while the lights are off, run towards the nearest bathroom and stay there until the screaming stops. Then proceed to turn all the lights on. Rule number 4. If there's a little girl with a teddy bear in the cafeteria, sit next to her and don't say a word. If she looks at you, walk back to the security room. If she speaks to you, talk back until she leaves. Rule number 5. Around 1 a.m., go to the general ward and check on the patients. If one seems to be sitting on their bed, ask them if they are okay and do whatever they request. If they strike conversation besides this, ignore it. Rule number 6. If it starts raining, open the front door and let the people in for shelter. Make sure everyone you let inside leave the building. If someone seems to be missing, you will see them on the security cameras. Do not look at them. Rule number 7. If the security cameras were to turn off anytime throughout the night, hide and pray for your life. They won't find you.
I put the paper back down on the desk and leaned back in the chair. I laughed at the sheer bizarreness of the situation. I must be getting pranked, I thought to myself, though deep down, I did not believe it was a prank. This was in fact a hospital, and it seemed unlikely my boss would go such lengths for a joke. Perhaps this was his way of seeing how much he could trust me to see if I would follow these foolish
Rules.
I reread
The rules.
once again to make sure I understood them. I sure as hell was going to show my boss that he can count on me. The clock struck 10 p.m. and I turned my attention to the security cameras. With not much happening on the security cameras, and only having 15 minutes until I was supposed to patrol, I felt my attention slowly falling towards my phone. The best way to waste your time. Spending time looking at memes and stupid internet news sure does go by quickly. It felt like I barely had spent time on my phone, yet it was already 10:15 p.m. I left my cozy chair, stretched my legs, and made my way out to the security room. I figured that starting at the highest floor and setting my way down would be the best course of action, so I made my way to the highest floor. Thankfully, there was an elevator, so I did not have to bother using stairs. I made my way up to the highest floor and started checking all the rooms, hallways, and even the bathrooms. As I expected, nothing special happened. The thing about working the night shift as a security guard is mostly that someone must be at the location in case something happens. However, this does not mean anything will happen, making it a boring, easy way to earn money. On top of that, I get to grab coffee and snacks whenever I want. No one seemed to be on this 3rd floor, so I decided to descend to the 2nd floor of the building. After patrolling the 2nd floor, I reached the conclusion that I had set for myself beforehand. Nothing special. I grabbed my phone to check the time to see if I needed. It was 10:32 p.m. when I finished the second floor, giving me enough time to explore the first floor. It did strike me as weird, however, that there was literally no one in the hospital. I expected a hospital to always have doctors and patients in the building, as that's the entire point of a hospital. However, every room I checked so far has been empty. If my boss was indeed trying to test me, he did not go all in on the preparations. Despite that, I proceeded to the first floor, which contained the intensive care unit, security room, front door, and cafeteria. I planned to pass through the ICU and main hall area first, so I could finish off with the cafeteria and get myself a snack. As I made my way through the ICU, I was caught by surprise when I noticed an old man, around 70 years old, standing in one of the rooms. Wonderstruck for a bit, I recalled
Rule:
number 1.
if you encounter anyone, kindly ask them to leave.
Suddenly, everything fell into place. I realized that my boss had hired an actor and allowed him inside the building to test my adherence to the
Rules.
With a sigh, I made way towards the man.
Excuse me, sir. You're not supposed to be here at this time. I would like to kindly ask you to leave.
I firmly asserted to the old man. The old man looked at me without saying a word, appearing confused by what I had told him.
Sir, I would kindly like to ask you to leave.
I repeated. He nodded his head in agreement and followed me out the building.
Good night, sir.
I told him as he walked away. Right before he completely vanished into the darkness, the old man unexpectedly spoke.
Be careful of the surgeon.
What did he mean by that? I quickly realized my boss must have told him to say that to scare me, so I quickly disregarded it. I continued to my patrol around the floor. No one else seemed to be on the first floor, so I grabbed another cup of coffee and a croissant from the cafeteria. As it was 10:53 p.m., I made my way back to the security room. Once inside, I leaned back in my chair and played some games with my phone, confident that no one was in the building, and I had nothing to worry about. After playing games on my phone for a while and finally checking the time, I was surprised to see that it was nearly 12 a.m. I had spent over an hour playing games on my phone. I shifted my attention to the security cameras, scanning for any anomalies. My heart skipped a beat as I noticed the lights out of the ICU were switched off. I cursed myself for not paying attention, as I had no idea how long the lights had been switched off, and the
Rule.
stated to turn them on as soon as possible. I got out of the security room to turn on the lights. As I walked towards the ICU, I froze in my steps. The sound of people screaming was deafening. I was baffled by the situation, unsure if my boss would have gone this far to see how far I followed.
The rules.
The agony in the screams was noticeable and raised my anxiety. That's when I heard a door open and close, followed by footsteps making their way towards my location. Without hesitation, I bolted to the bathroom on the first floor and locked myself in one of the toilets. I tried to gather my composure to make sense of the situation I found myself in. I couldn't seem to understand how it was even possible for anyone to be in the building. Their screams of agony felt so realistic that it left no room to think that this was staged for my boss. Those screams were real. Before I could fully reclaim my composure, the bathroom doors swung open, and the same footsteps I heard before walked inside. I tried to stay as silent as possible, not knowing if the person had a weapon. For a second, the silence was deafening until the person started whispering a song to himself. Welcome to the hospital. Welcome to the hospital. You can come, but you can't go. Welcome to the hospital. Welcome to the hospital. He murmured as he knocked on the doors of every bathroom stall. I jumped when he knocked on mine, the sound noticeably louder than with the others. Through the gap beneath the door, I could see his feet on the other side, completely motionless.
Is anyone there?
He said in a deranged tone.
Open up, don't be shy.
He continued. My heart pounded in my chest as I held onto the silence. I remained frozen, praying he would soon leave me alone so I could get the hell out of here. The man persisted, knocking on the door as attempt to gain my reaction out of me.
Come on, Jake. I need your help with something.
He cried out desperately. Well then, we have concluded the first part of the third installment of our Thrills. If you want to know how the story ends, well then, I guess you'll have to watch the other video. But oh well, my little art freaks, I must bid my goodbyes now, and I thank you for watching. Have a good night, good evening, or even a good day. But at any time, keep the blaze burning.